Far out in the galaxy, on a dying world called Virex, the skies burned red with fire and smoke. The Trinari, a peaceful alien race known for their knowledge and art, were losing a brutal war. Their cities had fallen, their warriors were gone, and the last of their people hid underground in fear. Above them, the Dravari Dominion, the cruel and merciless conquerors of the stars, rained destruction upon anything that moved. Once shining towers were now rubble. Once beautiful gardens were now ashes. The Trinari had sent messages for help again and again, broadcasting them into the cold void of space, but there had been no answer. No ships, no hope. It had been years since anyone replied. The galaxy had forgotten them. Deep in an underground chamber, Queen Relay of the Trinari sat in silence. Her silver skin was dull now, and her once bright eyes were tired. Around her, a handful of advisors whispered, their voices heavy with fear. The Dominion forces had surrounded the last city, and the end was near. Relay had already watched her people suffer for too long. She had nothing left to give, except one final cry for help. She stood, walked to the ancient signal tower that had once connected them to friendly worlds, and placed her hand on the control crystal. "Whoever hears this," she said, her voice shaking but strong, "we are the Trinari. We are dying. Our people have no weapons left, no strength, but we still live. We ask not for victory, only for survival. If there is anyone out there, please, help us." The message was sent. A beam of light shot into the stars, faster than anything physical, racing past broken satellites and quiet moons. The Queen stepped back. For a moment, no one spoke. Then one of her advisors, old and wise, looked at her and asked the question they were all thinking. "Do you really believe someone will come?" Relay didn't answer. She just looked up at the stone ceiling and whispered a quiet prayer. Far away, beyond known space, the message reached a forgotten satellite. It floated near a dead star, its systems long thought destroyed. But this satellite wasn't ordinary. It belonged to Earth, a planet no longer on star maps, a planet believed to be gone after the great collapse 50 years ago. The satellite's lights flickered. Then it came to life. Slowly, it activated its relay protocol and sent the message to Deep Earth Command. Deep beneath the crust of a cold, gray moon, something began to stir. Ancient machinery hummed. Sleeper systems awoke, and for the first time in decades, Earth's eyes turned toward the stars again. On Earth's last military moon base, Omega Black, an alert flashed. Commander Rourke, a tall man with a steel jaw and fire in his eyes, stepped forward. He read the signal once, then again. Trinari distress. Planet Virex. Full Dominion siege. No reinforcements expected. Rourke stared at the screen, his mind racing. Earth had not sent troops in years. Humanity had turned inward after losing billions in the collapse. But now, hearing the Trinari's words, something old returned. A sense of duty, of honor, of rage. He turned to his team, elite soldiers trained in silence and shadows. The Ghost Legion. They had been built for wars that never happened, trained for enemies that never came. Until now. "Suit up," Rourke said. "We're going to Virex." On Virex, night had fallen, but the sky was never dark. Dominion ships floated above the city, scanning for life. Suddenly, a strange energy ripple crossed the clouds. The Dominion officers noticed, confused, but thought nothing of it. A glitch, maybe. They had already won. Then the sky opened. A single streak of blue fire crashed through the atmosphere. A pod, large, black, glowing from within. It hit the ground like thunder. Dominion troops moved in, weapons raised. But before they reached it, the pod's doors exploded outward. Smoke poured out, and from the smoke, a giant stepped forward. He wore a sleek black exosuit, glowing with light from a hidden power source. His face was covered, his eyes lit like twin stars. Without a word, he charged. The Dominion soldiers opened fire. Energy blasts filled the air. But they missed. The human moved like lightning, dodging, leaping, slamming into the enemy like a force of nature. With a wave of his arm, a wave of sound knocked the soldiers off their feet. He grabbed one, crushed his weapon, and threw him into two others. Then he raised his wrist, tapped something, and vanished. The battle lasted only 30 seconds. When it was over, the streak was silent. The humans stood alone. One man had destroyed a full Draveri patrol. The Trineri, watching from below, didn't believe their eyes. For years, they had known only fear, but now something else was rising in their hearts. Word spread fast. Across the city, the Trineri whispered about the Sky Warrior, about the one who dropped from the heavens and destroyed the enemy with bare hands. The Dominion, confused, increased patrols. But the human didn't stop. Night after night, more pods fell. 2, then 3, then 5. A full squad of Earth's finest had arrived. Queen Relay received a direct message from them. Text only. Simple. Clear. Earth hears you. We are here. We fight together. She showed the message to her people. Some wept. Some raised their fists. For the first time in years, they believed survival was possible. Back on Earth's moon base, more teams prepared for launch. Earth wasn't just going to help. It was going to make the Dominion regret ever thinking humanity was finished. In the shadows of a burning world, the game had changed. And the stars would soon remember. When humans fall silent, it's not because they're broken. It's because they're preparing to strike back. The fires of Virex still burned, but now they burned with something new. Resistance. In just 2 nights, the human warriors had become legends. The Trineri called them Sky Ghosts because they moved without sound, attacked without warning, and vanished like smoke. Dominion patrols began to fear the shadows. Their scanners picked up movement, but by the time they arrived, their soldiers were already gone, or worse. Commander Rourke stood on a rooftop in the middle of a broken city. Around him, his team set up relay points, scanners, and motion beacons. Their armor glowed faint blue under the moonlight, powered by something the Dominion didn't understand. Earth's last surviving war core, a special energy system built to keep a few warriors alive in even the deadliest conditions. That was all Earth had left now. Few soldiers, few resources, but the warriors they did send were built to win or die trying. Trineri citizens began crawling from their underground shelters. Carefully, slowly, afraid it might be a trap. But then they saw the human soldiers, and they saw something even stranger. One of the soldiers helping a wounded Trineri child walk to safety. The people stared. The Draveri had never shown mercy. But these humans, they were different. They didn't speak much, but they fought like they carried the weight of 100 broken worlds. Queen Relay watched from a high platform, surrounded by her council. She was still cautious. The Dominion had broken every treaty they ever made. Could these humans be trusted? Could they really turn the tide? She called for a meeting with the human commander. Rourke arrived, silent, respectful. He removed his helmet, revealing a scared face, eyes like cold iron. He bowed slightly. "We're here because no one else came," he said simply. "Earth remembers what it means to be forgotten." Relay looked at him, studying his face. "Why now?" she asked. "Why save us when no one else will?" Rourke didn't smile. He just replied, "Because we were once like you. Alone, dying, and no one came for us. That mistake ends here." Later that night, deep in the Dominion command ship above Virex, the Draveri warlord General Karish received a report. His elite units had failed to capture a human. His patrols were being destroyed, and his own officers were requesting evacuation of outer zones. Evacuation. Karish roared, slamming his clawed fist on the command table. "From humans." The officer flinched. "These are not ordinary humans, General. They do not follow known tactics. Their weapons are silent. Their armor resists plasma. They fight like machines." Karish leaned forward, his eyes burning with rage. "Then we burn the city. Burn it all. If they hide among the Trinari, then the Trinari die with them." Orders were sent. From orbit, fire rained down. Entire blocks turned to ash. The sky lit up with red light. Trinari citizens screamed as buildings collapsed. But before the bombs hit one of the major shelters, something fast cut through the sky. A dome of blue energy rose above the bunker. An Earth-made defense field, deployed seconds before the strike. The bombs hit the shield and bounced off, exploding in the air. The Trinari inside stared in shock. They had never seen such a thing. Then they heard the human voices over the comms. "We've got you covered. Sit tight. No one else dies tonight." The people cheered, tears falling from their eyes. The next morning, Dominion soldiers entered Sector 12 to find out why their bombs hadn't worked. What they found instead were 3 human soldiers waiting for them in the open. They tried to attack, but the humans moved first. Fast, deadly. Their weapons made no sound, but their shots found every weak point. It was over in less than a minute. Back underground, Commander Rourke met with Queen Relay again. He laid out a plan, not just to defend, but to strike. The Dominion had built a mobile command center near the city's old crystal mine, where rare power gems were harvested. If they could destroy it, it would blind the Draveri fleet above for 24 hours. That would be the Resistance's chance to fight back and push the Dominion out of Virex forever. "It's dangerous," Rourke said. "We might not come back." Queen Relay stood. "Then I will lead our side. If your warriors fight for my people, I will not hide behind stone." She gave orders to gather all surviving Trinari soldiers, engineers, and pilots. For the first time in years, her people were not running. They were preparing to fight. As night fell again, the joint human Trinari strike force moved through the tunnels toward the mine. Trinari engineers carried homemade bombs. Human soldiers carried Earth-made gear, old, patched up, but deadly. At the front, Rourke and Relay marched side by side. When they reached the surface, the mine glowed in the distance. Dominion guards patrolled the area with heavy armor and long-range weapons, but they didn't see what was coming. The attack began with silence. The first guards dropped without sound, taken by shadow. Then, explosions rocked the base from inside. Trinari saboteurs had planted charges on the power lines. Panic spread among the Dominion ranks. Lights failed. Systems shut down. And then the full force hit them. Humans dropped from the cliffs above. Trinari charged from the tunnels. The air filled with fire and smoke. The Draveri were strong, but they were not ready for this. They were not ready for unity, for warriors who didn't care about dying, for aliens and humans fighting side by side. By sunrise, the mine was rubble. From the sky above, the Dominion fleet tried to scan the city, but their systems were blind. The mobile command hub was gone. And on the ground, the Resistance raised a new banner, half Trinari symbol, half Earth flag. They had won the first true victory. And now, the galaxy was watching. Because what had begun as a cry for help was becoming a war for freedom. The victory at the mine was just the beginning. As news of the humans' triumph spread across Virex, the once dim embers of hope began to burn brighter. The Dominion, arrogant and sure of their absolute control, now found themselves facing a real challenge, a united front of humans and Trinari that they had never expected. The survivors of Virex began to rally. Every day, more people left their hiding places, picking up weapons and taking a stand against the invaders. The Trinari, once a peaceful people, were now learning to fight, learning from the humans who had shown them that survival was still possible. Commander Rourke knew that the battle had only begun. His team of Ghost Legion soldiers had proven their strength, but they were only a few. The Draveri Dominion had thousands of ships, armies, and weapons at their disposal. He needed more firepower, more warriors, and more allies. But Earth was far away, and the war had taken too much out of them already. This was all they had. But Rourke had a plan. "Get me a direct line to Omega Black," he ordered his lieutenant. Omega Black was Earth's last military base, hidden deep beneath the surface of a moon far from the reach of the Draveri. It was a place that very few even knew existed, a place that held Earth's greatest weapons. If they could call in backup, they might have a chance. Back in the heart of the Trinary resistance, Queen Relay stood before her people who now wore the same battle gear as the humans. "We have shown the Dominion that we will not bow," she said, her voice strong and steady. "We have fought beside the humans, and together we have struck a blow for freedom. But this fight is far from over. If we are to defeat them, we must move quickly. The Draveri will not take this defeat lightly. They will come for us harder than before." The Trinary and the humans worked day and night to prepare for what was coming next. The plan was risky, very risky. They would launch a full-scale attack on the Dominion's command ship, the Tyrannus, the flagship of General Karish, the Draveri warlord. It was a massive vessel, powerful enough to crush any resistance, and it was stationed just above the atmosphere of Virex. If they could destroy it, they would cripple the Dominion's control over the planet. But it wouldn't be easy. At Omega Black, Rourke received the message he had been waiting for. The backup was on its way. Earth's last remaining fleet of warships was en route, led by the massive battleship Revenant. It would take time for them to arrive, but they were coming. Until then, Rourke had to rely on the strength of the Trinary warriors and his own Ghost Legion. The night before the assault, Rourke gathered his team. His soldiers were focused, sharp, and ready to do whatever it took to finish the job. Queen Relay stood beside him. She had taken a special interest in the humans, in their determination and strength. She had lost so much, but now, with these new allies, there was a flicker of hope that had not been there before. "This is it," Rourke said. "We take the Tyrannus, we break their control, and we show the galaxy that Earth is not dead. We are still here, and we will not be forgotten." The team moved silently through the night. Under the cover of darkness, they made their way to the Dominion's main fortress. The Tyrannus loomed overhead, a massive steel beast that cast a long shadow over the city. It was heavily guarded, but the humans and Trinary knew the terrain. They knew the weaknesses in the Dominion's defenses. They would strike fast and hard before the Draveri could respond. They breached the fortress walls, moving through the darkened halls, their movements swift and precise. Inside, the Tyrannus was filled with Draveri soldiers, each one a deadly warrior. But they were not prepared for this. They had underestimated the humans, and they had underestimated the Trinary. The battle was intense. The sound of gunfire echoed through the corridors, but it was met with the deadly silence of the humans' advanced weapons. The Trinary fought side by side with the Ghost Legion, their courage matching the human skill. As they fought their way through the fortress, Rourke's mind remained focused on the prize, the core of the ship where General Karish himself would be. Finally, they'd reached the central command room. The doors were reinforced, but they blasted through them with explosive charges. Inside, General Karish stood waiting, his eyes burning with fury. He knew who had come. "You think you can defeat me?" Karish growled, his voice cold and mocking. "You're nothing but remnants of a forgotten past." Rourke stepped forward, his expression unreadable. "We've been forgotten before, but we're here now. And this is where your empire ends." The battle that followed was savage. Karish fought with the rage of 1,000 warlords, his powerful claws ripping through the air. But Rourke and the Trinary were ready. Together, they'd brought the Draveri leader to his knees. With a final strike, Rourke dealt the killing blow. Karish's body crumpled to the ground, and the Tyrannus shook. The ship's systems began to fail as the power core overloaded. The humans and Trinary quickly set the detonators to destroy the core, then ran for their lives. As they made their way back to the surface, The Tyrannus exploded in a brilliant flash of light. The shockwave knocked them off their feet, but they held their ground. The Dominion fleet, now without its flagship, would be in disarray. The battle for Virex had been won, but the war was far from over. Earth's warriors had proven that they could still fight. And now, with the Tyrannus gone, the Draveri would have to rethink their strategy. Rourke looked up at the sky. The first signs of Earth's fleet were visible, coming from the distant stars. More ships, more warriors. The final chapter of this war was just beginning. The galaxy had forgotten Earth for too long, but now they would never forget again. The explosion of the Tyrannus was only the beginning. As the massive warship crumbled in the skies above Virex, a thunderous roar echoed across the planet. The Dominion fleet, now leaderless and disorganized, fell into chaos. But in the midst of that chaos, something far more terrifying began to take shape. Earth's fleet had arrived. Commander Rourke and his team watched from the ruins of the Dominion fortress as the first ships descended from the stars. The Revenant, Earth's largest battleship, broke through the atmosphere like a spear of vengeance. Behind it, smaller ships followed in formation, filling the sky with the promise of fire and fury. They had come, not just to defend, but to take back what was theirs. "Are you ready?" Queen Relay asked Rourke, her voice steady despite the raging storm overhead. Rourke didn't respond at first, his eyes fixed on the approaching ships. The roar of their engines vibrated through the ground. The battle was not over. It had only just begun. And now, Earth's warriors were about to show the galaxy the full extent of their fury. "We're ready," Rourke finally said, turning to face the Trinary Queen. "This ends today." Above them, the first volley of missiles from the Revenant hit the remaining Dominion ships. The air was filled with the fiery trail of destruction as explosions tore through the skies. On the ground, the remaining Dominion forces scrambled to defend themselves, but they were already outmatched. They had underestimated Earth. They had underestimated the power of humanity. Within minutes, the Dominion's primary defense systems were wiped out. But the true battle was about to begin. As the human and Trinary forces regrouped, Commander Rourke gave the signal to advance. The Trinary had shown great bravery in the last few days, but now it was time for the humans to lead the charge. The ground forces moved like a well-oiled machine, with Rourke's Ghost Legion in the vanguard. They fought through the Dominion's defenses with precision, cutting through their ranks with surgical strikes. Meanwhile, Queen Relay commanded the Trinary forces, leading her people into battle with an unmatched determination. The air was thick with the sounds of war, blaster fire, the screeching of metal, and the thunderous roar of the Revenant's cannons. It was as if the entire planet was shaking with the force of their combined assault. And then, just as they reached the Dominion's final stronghold, a new threat emerged. From the remnants of the Dominion fleet, a new weapon appeared, a massive war machine, unlike anything the humans or Trinary had ever seen. It was a towering mechanical monster, standing over 50 meters tall, covered in reinforced armor, and armed with enough firepower to wipe out an entire battalion in seconds. Rourke's heart sank as he saw the behemoth stomp toward them. It was a walking fortress, and its cannon was aimed directly at them. "We'll never make it through that," one of his soldiers said, his voice tense with fear. But Rourke's resolve hardened. He had seen worse. He had faced odds that seemed impossible before, and every time, he had survived. "We fight, and we fight until we win. Earth never backs down." The Revenant launched another round of missiles, but the war machine's thick armor shrugged them off, barely even slowing it down. Rourke knew that conventional weapons weren't going to cut it. They needed something more. He turned to his lieutenant. "Set the charges. We need to take out its power core." The lieutenant nodded, sprinting off toward the enemy machine with a small team of soldiers. Meanwhile, Rourke signaled for the Trinary to take up defensive positions, providing cover fire as the humans moved in. The battle was fierce. The machine fired its massive cannons, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. But the Ghost Legion moved with precision, using every tactic they had learned. They dodged and weaved, taking down Dominion soldiers with brutal efficiency, clearing the way for the demolition team. As the demolition team neared the war machine's exposed power core, a loud siren blared from within the mechanical monstrosity. The ground trembled as the massive war machine activated its final line of defense. Several smaller drones that began to swarm the humans. "Cover them," Rourke shouted, rallying his soldiers. The Trinary fired relentlessly, picking off the drones as they flew toward the demolition team. Every shot counted. If even one of the drones got past them, it would be game over. The demolition team finally reached the core and placed the explosive charges. "It's set," one of the engineers shouted over the comms. Rourke didn't hesitate. "Detonate it now." The explosion rocked the battlefield. The war machine's power core detonated with a deafening blast. The entire machine crumpled like a paper cup, falling to the ground with a thunderous crash. The shockwave threw Rourke and the others off their feet, but they quickly recovered. The battlefield was silent for a moment. Then, without warning, the remaining Dominion forces began to retreat, realizing their advantage had crumbled. The Revenant loomed in the sky above them, its weapons primed for further destruction. The Dominion was losing, and they knew it. The humans and Trinary did not hesitate. They pushed forward, breaking through the remnants of the Dominion's defense line. It was a race now, race to capture the last stronghold and end the war once and for all. As Rourke and his team charged toward the Dominion's final position, he couldn't help but feel a rush of satisfaction. The battle was almost won. Earth's warriors had shown their true strength. The Draveri had underestimated them, and now they were paying the price. And yet, in the back of his mind, Rourke knew that this was only the beginning. The war had taken so much from them. So many lives had been lost. But Earth would rise again. The galaxy would remember the power of humanity, no longer forgotten, no longer weak. With one final push, they'd reached the heart of the Dominion's stronghold. The last remnants of the Draveri forces stood before them, but they were no match for the combined might of the humans and Trinary. General Karish was dead. The Tyrannus had fallen. The Dominion was broken. And Earth's warriors, no longer exiled, no longer forgotten, had returned. The galaxy would never forget again. The final battle had begun, and the fate of not just Earth, but the entire galaxy now rested on the shoulders of those who dared to fight back. The war-torn landscape of Virex was littered with the remains of the Dominion's forces, but there was no time to rest. The humans and Trinary pressed forward, determined to finish what they had started. Commander Rourke's heart raced as his team moved into the final stretch of the Dominion's last bastion. The Revenant hovered above them, a constant reminder of Earth's might. The massive warship continued to rain fire down on the Dominion forces below, but there was one final obstacle to overcome: the Dominion's last leader, Admiral Vekroth. Vekroth was a legend among the Draveri. Cold, calculating, and ruthless, he had single-handedly crushed entire planets before. It was said that his cruelty knew no bounds, and that his ambition had no limits. If anyone could rally the broken Dominion forces, it was him. And now he had one final card to play. "We need to find him before he finds us," Rourke muttered, his eyes scanning the horizon. The enemy's forces were scattered, but they were still dangerous, and Vekroth's presence was felt everywhere. The Trinary warriors, led by Queen Relay, formed a protective circle around the humans, advancing with silent grace. Rourke couldn't help but admire their strength. They had fought with every ounce of their being, and now, side by side with the humans, they were about to bring an end to the war. The atmosphere grew tense as they neared the heart of the Dominion's stronghold. The air was thick with the smell of smoke and burning metal, the ground beneath their feet shaking with the remnants of the previous battles. Every corner seemed to hide an enemy, and every shadow threatened a surprise attack. But the humans and Trinary moved as one, knowing they couldn't afford to stop now. Suddenly, the ground quaked. The earth trembled underfoot, and Rourke could hear the roar of a massive engine powering up. From the shadows, a colossal machine emerged, a towering war mech, even more advanced than the one they had destroyed earlier. This was Vekroth's personal weapon, a machine built for one purpose: annihilation. "Everyone, take cover," Rourke shouted, as the mech raised its massive cannons. The air crackled with energy as it fired, sending blasts of destructive force across the battlefield. The humans and Trineri dove behind the wreckage of the Dominion's defenses, barely avoiding the deadly barrage. "This isn't going to be easy," Queen Relay said, her voice calm despite the chaos. "We need to destroy its core, just like we did with the last one." Rourke nodded grimly. They had taken down one giant machine, but this one was different. This wasn't just a war machine. It was Vekroth's symbol of power, and he would stop at nothing to see it destroy them all. "We move in teams," Rourke ordered. "Ghost Legion, take the left flank. Trinari, cover our right. We need to surround it." The plan was risky, but it was the only way. The humans and Trineri launched into action, moving with speed and precision. The mech's cannons fired again, but this time the soldiers were ready. They weaved through the wreckage, dodging blasts as they closed in on the mech. The battle raged, every second bringing them closer to the ultimate confrontation. As they neared the machine, Rourke's heart pounded in his chest. The closer they got, the more deadly the fight became. The Dominion forces had regrouped and were now working with Vekroth's mech, determined to keep the humans and Trineri from reaching their target. But Rourke's team pressed on, moving as a single unit, taking down enemy after enemy. Then the mech's head opened, revealing Admiral Vekroth himself. His cold, calculating eyes met Rourke's, and the final battle between the two commanders began. "I knew Earth would never stay down," Vekroth sneered, his voice amplified by the mech's speakers. "But you are too weak, too fractured. This galaxy belongs to the Draveri. You'll never defeat me." Rourke clenched his fists, feeling the weight of the moment. This was the enemy who had brought them to the brink of extinction. This was the man who had underestimated Earth. And now Rourke was going to make him regret it. "You underestimate humanity," Rourke growled, stepping forward with his team. "We are never weak. We are never fractured. We are Earth. And you'll see just how powerful we can be." The battle that followed was nothing short of legendary. The two forces clashed in a storm of fire and fury, the air alive with the sound of explosions and weapons fire. Rourke and his soldiers used every trick they knew, every strategy, to take down the mech. The Trineri fought with the strength of their ancestors, their weapons cutting through the Dominion soldiers with precision. Finally, Rourke's team reached the mech's core. With a well-placed shot, they blasted the core, causing the machine to shudder violently. The ground shook, and the mech's power began to unravel. In a final act of defiance, Vekroth attempted to launch a last-ditch attack, but it was too late. The mech exploded in a massive fireball, sending shockwaves through the battlefield. The blast knocked everyone to the ground, but Rourke didn't wait. He rose to his feet, bloody but unbroken, and turned his gaze to the remaining Dominion forces. Their leader was dead, their strongest weapon destroyed. The war was over. The sky above them was filled with the stars of Earth's fleet, their ships moving in to secure the planet. Victory was theirs. The galaxy would never forget the humans again. They had come from the ashes of defeat and risen to claim their place among the stars. Earth had been exiled, forgotten, and left to die. But now, they had returned, with fire, fury, and a vengeance. "We did it," Queen Relay said, her voice soft but full of pride. "We are free." Rourke nodded, looking up at the stars. The fight was over. The Draveri Dominion had been vanquished, and Earth had taken its place as a power once again. The galaxy had learned a powerful lesson. Never underestimate the human spirit. As the Revenant hovered above, its engines humming softly, Rourke smiled. This was only the beginning. The galaxy was vast, and humanity was ready to claim its rightful place. And they would never be forgotten again.